this is just a quick update. You may have noticed that I haven't been posting these vlogs for some time, in fact for a couple of years, and part of the reason for that is that I haven't been driving a car. I've been traveling to the university and back using my motorbike, and vlogging while driving a motorbike is even more dangerous than vlogging while driving a car. So let's hope that there are opportunities for more of these little reflections. I'm titling them "It's Not a Lecture, Just a Thought." That comes from my friend Alan Story, who did a brilliant series called "It's Not a Sermon, Just a Thought." Thanks, Alan, for that inspiration. You can find Alan's work, which I'll link down below, at aslowwalk.org. aslowwalk.org, and you can find his stuff there. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully there'll be more of these coming. Not that I'm going to be driving a car more often, but I'll try and record them in other locations as I have time. So this week has been a rather interesting week in the news cycle in South Africa. At the center of the news has been South Africa's President Jacob Zuma and his complicit relationship with an Indian family, the Gupta family. It seems that this particular family, who have given the president some favors in the past, apparently offered jobs, senior ministerial jobs to persons, and some of this while Jacob Zuma was in the next room. And so the concern is that if private individuals can offer jobs that only the president can, one of them was to appoint someone as Minister of Finance, then the concern is that these individuals, the Guptas, have captured the state. Now, the interesting thing for me is, I mean, obviously I'm concerned about the president and the way in which he's handling his relationship with this family. But the interesting thing for me has been the reaction, particularly of friends and family and people that I relate to on social media, and their calls for the president to either resign or be axed. Now, I personally do think it would be a good idea for him to step down, and for the governing party, the African National Congress, to be more strict about personal relationships with wealthy individuals and relationships of profit, and to deal with corruption. But it's interesting to see that particularly amongst white South Africans, there's this sort of almost naive and unrealistic hope that if the president should step down, that the next elected leader would somehow solve South Africa's problems, as if Jacob Zuma is the only problem that we have in South Africa. Now, I often hear people using this phrase post-apartheid South Africa, and I encourage my students and colleagues, and I'd certainly encourage you to stop using that phrase, because South Africa isn't in a post-apartheid condition or state. The only way in which we are post-apartheid is that legislated political apartheid has ended, but we are actually most apartheid South Africa. We are more separated today racially, economically, than we were before 1994. The Institute for Justice and Reconciliation released its Reconciliation Barometer late last year in 2015. Go and Google it and read it. It's interesting to see that we are more divided today than what we were before 1994. Now, Scott McKnight, in his book The Kingdom Conspiracy, makes the point that sometimes Christians in particular fall for a form of eschatological politics. Now, for those who don't know the word eschatology, it's a theological word that refers to the end of time, or the fullness of time. And there's almost a sort of political belief that the next leader will be the full leader, will be the one who can set us free. And I don't think that is a realistic expectation. It's problematic for me, particularly as a public theologian, that active citizens would want to give over all of their power for transformation and change to the state. Now, one of my favorite philosophers, Slavoj Zizek, gives a wonderful analogy that I think applies to this situation. He says one of the greatest contributions that America has given to the world is canned laughter. Now, canned laughter, of course, is that laughter that we see on sitcoms. And he uses this analogy. He says, you come home from work, you're dead tired, you switch on the TV, you slump down on the couch, and you begin to watch your favorite episode of Seinfeld or whatever. And at strategic moments, the producers of the show, the director, has inserted other people laughing at what you should be laughing at. Now, some would suggest that that's a cue for laughter, but in my experience, and Zizek says this as well, what happens is you're so tired that you don't even laugh. And so these other people do your laughing for you. And after 30 minutes has passed and the show is over, you switch off the TV and you say, boy, that was funny. I laughed so much. And there's a sense in which Zizek says this is how religion operates. We give over our agency, our power for transformation to religious institutions or leaders. But I also think it applies to politics. I think that in South Africa, we're giving over way too much of our power for the changes we want to see in the nation to politicians. Of course, the reality is that the government can change some things, and they certainly should do so, and that their inability to do so does hamper certain forms of transformation. But I'm also reminded of that wonderful little sentence that Barack Obama used in both of his election campaigns, where he said, "We are the people that we have been waiting for." Now, I don't know if you know this, that sentence actually comes from a poem that was delivered at the United Nations on the 9th of August 1978, and it's a poem written about the mass women's march that took place in South Africa in 1956, when about 40,000 women marched to the Union buildings in Pretoria to take a stand against the government. And this poem reflects on the fact that these women and children are the people that the nation had been waiting for. So here's what I've been thinking about this situation. Yes, absolutely, as citizens of South Africa, we should exercise our democratic right. When the next elections come up, we should remind the governing party that it's a privilege to serve in leadership, and that they are civil servants, not civil masters, and that they get our votes so that they can serve the interests of the common good. And I also do think it would be a good idea for the African National Congress and the president of the African National Congress, Jacob Zuma, to recognize the damage that he's doing to society for his private gain and the gain of his family. However, I also want to say to my friends and to those of you who are watching this, please don't give over your responsibility. Don't have a form of naive civil religion believing that the next leader will solve the problems that we have in South Africa. If we want to deal with economic inequality and racism and the ongoing distrust between people, we are the people that we've been waiting for. And I think certain things can happen through democratic and political processes, but very important things happen through the way in which you live. The way in which you live with your colleagues, with your friends, with the people in your neighborhood, your willingness, in some senses, to cross the floor, to go to the other place, to build strong and lasting and sincere friendships with people of different races or different class groups, to find ways to share privilege and wealth for the common good of all. So that would be my invitation to all of us. Yes, exercise your democratic right, but become the kind of change that you want to see. Thanks for watching today. Just a reminder, this is not a lecture, it's just a thought. If you'd like to follow me, then please visit my website, www.dionfoster.com, DIONFORSTER.com. I'll put a link in the description. Follow me on Twitter @DigitalDion, or on Instagram @DigitalDion, or hook up with me on Facebook.